Now let's learn about one of the very important concepts in programming, which is called loops. So in JavaScript, there are three constructs that allow us to make loops. But before we get into the constructs, let's understand what loops are and what are they used for. So I have this cheat sheet over here for you, and on section number 10 on page number 6, you will find these particular definitions. So if I simply zoom in over here, let's study what loops really are. So over here it says that loops are used to do something repeatedly. For instance, let's say we get a list of 50 blog posts from the database and we want to print their titles on our page. Instead of writing the code of printing some information 50 times, we would instead use a loop to make this happen. So something to do repeatedly. So to get started with the demonstration, we're going to look at the for loop. We have other constructs as well, like the while loop and the do while loop as well. We're going to look at all of them. Now, to start off with the for loop, the way the syntax of a for loop is that you start with the word for, and then you provide brackets, and the brackets have three parameters. They're actually not called parameters because it's not a function, but it looks like a function, right? But it's not a function, it's the for statement. So it takes three statements inside, or three expressions inside, or three things inside. And one of the things is the initial expression, then the condition, and the second expression, all right? And if a condition is met, just like in the if statement, right, we have looked at, if a condition is met, then this code block runs. If that condition becomes false, then the loop ends and the loop no longer runs. Okay, so that's the idea. So the steps are actually defined over here on the right hand side. So let's take a look. There are 5 steps over here in a for loop. Now we're going to slow it down so you understand each of the concept. So the step 1 is that when the code starts to run, the step 1 is run the initial expression. So whatever code is mentioned over here will get run. The next step is check if the condition meets. So then it's going to come over here and say, okay, does whatever condition is mentioned over here, does the condition meet? And if that condition is met, then it's going to proceed and run this particular code. So which is step number 3, run the code in block, right? It's not going to come after the condition is met or not met. It's not going to come to the second expression. It's going to actually go to the block. So that's one confusion that new people have, that the first expression is run, the condition is met or not met. If it's met, then the code block is run. If it's not met, the condition is false, then the loop immediately ends. Okay? So let's say that if the condition is met and the code block runs on step number 3, run the code in the block. And after the block of code is run, then it's going to go to step number 4, which is run the second expression. So it's going to come over here and whatever is mentioned over here it's going to do. And then on step number 5, it's going to go to the step 2 again. So it's going to go to the step 2. What is step 2? Check if the condition meets. So it's going to check the condition, and if the condition again is true, then it's going to run this block of code again and go to, step number 2. And if the condition is still true, then run it again. So it's going to keep on going to this particular cycle. And as long as the condition is true, it's going to keep on running the code block. And as the condition is false, then the loop ends. Now, this is all theory. So now let's look this thing into practice. So to get started, I have created this document, which has simply the index.html. And I have this index.html totally empty with app.js inside, and the app.js is totally empty as well. So we're going to start off by writing a loop. So I'm going to just simply come in and say for, and then write in the first expression. What is the first expression? Typically, we just define a new keyword. That's just normally what happens. So you say var I is equal to, let's say, 0. So I create a new variable that I'm going to use. The next thing is a condition. So I'm going to say if I, as long as I is less than, let's say, 100, then run this block, okay? And the third argument or third statement that we need over here is the second expression. So the second expression is going to be, let's say, I++, okay? So what's happening over here is I'm saying for loop, set I, a new variable, into set the value of 0. And as long as I is less than 100, do whatever this code block has. So I'm going to simply, for demonstration purposes, do console.log. And let's say I'm going to just print the value of I. So now as you see that the value of var is 0, and it's going to say, okay, I is less than 100, which is true. So I'm going to run this. So it will, I've not saved it and I've not refreshed, but it's going to print 0. Then it's going to come over here, as we saw on our steps. Let's see. It's going to run the second step. And the second step says to run the second expression. Or the fourth step says run the second expression. So it's going to come over here and say I++. So I++ is what? 0 plus 1 is 1. So it's going to say, okay, now the new value of I is 1. And then it's going to come to the condition and say, okay, is I still less than 100? So 1 is less than 100, that's true. So it's going to run this code again. And then it's going to come over here and say, okay, I++ is 2. So it's going to, is 2 less than 100? Sure, yes, that's true. So it's going to print this once again. It's going to keep on doing this until I++ becomes 100. When I++ becomes 100, it says, is 100 less than 100? False. So this ends, the loop ends. So now, just by doing this, if I save and now refresh, the console.log is going to run 100 times from 0 all the way to 100, or actually 99, okay? Because as it becomes less than 100, then it's going to print. So 0 to 99 should get printed, okay? So now I'm going to refresh, and yes, I have 99, 98, 97, all the way from 0. And you notice that this particular code is mentioned over here, that app.js, and this 2 over here, that signifies the line number on our file. So on line number 2, this code, console.log, has been run 100 times. So that is how a for loop runs.